Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Whale Nerds Podcast. This is episode number 96. My name is Slater, and I'm here with Adam and Caitlin.
What's up?
Hello.
Back to back.
I know.
Yeah. They're not coming out back to back. Well, they are, I guess, weekly, but we recorded these episodes all in pretty quick succession so that we could get back on our routine of having episodes come out in the midst of me moving and the holidays approaching and everybody's still working. So yeah, we feel like we just talked to each other, but this episode's coming out much later than the date we're recording it. It's actually coming out the day after Thanksgiving. So hopefully you're not actually listening to this episode unless you're hiking outside somewhere, because you should be outside doing something, not Black Friday shopping
with your family.
I saw a meme. It was like, what happened to your TV from last year? Why do you need a new TV? Because, it's like TVs go on sale.
Yeah.
It's because everybody feels they need a new TV for like Super Bowl freaking.
Why, dude? Get one. TVs are so cheap now. I bought my TV like
American capitalism,
3 years ago.
Adam. That's why you need to go the day after Thanksgiving when you just said how grateful you were for everything to go spend money for Christmas and for Super Bowl.
Except for there's going to be nothing. There's going to be nothing on the shelves. It's empty. Like there's no, you can't buy an Xbox right now. Like they've been sold out for months. What are you going to buy people? I was going to buy you both an Xbox.
You're going to spend time with people. You're going to give them the gift of your presence and time and dedication and love.
Yeah, I'm sure my nephew's going to love that.
Instead of just flipping buying stuff.
I will say, though, there is a sale on underwater housing I want. So,
What is it? What underwater housing? IClide or something?
No, it's Aquatica. I'm not bougie enough for Nauticam.
Why would you buy a housing when I literally just let you borrow one?
Because
he wants.
Are you going to borrow it all the time?
He said my housing doesn't. It scares sea lions away, even though every single person, their mom uses a Nauticam with sea lions, except for Adam somehow.
No, I just think
whatever, Adam. You buy your own thing. It's your money.
Yeah, you buy it up, dude.
No,
buy it up, buy it down.
No, dude. Let's go. Oh my gosh. Anyways, moving on. So hopefully yesterday, you took some time to reflect and spend time with people that you love and care about, whether it's your family or your friends or whoever.
Your dog.
Your dog. Yeah. Whoever's important to you for the day. And also hopefully it's 2021. So maybe people start to realize that like the traditional story of Thanksgiving is not true. So maybe you took yesterday to reflect on that also. That's what we do at our house. And then we spend time with, good food and gratitude and all that good stuff, but teach their own, but that's my take on it.
F. Christopher Columbus.
Yeah. And living in Massachusetts the last 2 summers, I can tell you that the whole story of the first Thanksgiving is a fabrication. It's like literally a story that was made up by the US government. That did not happen. There's zero evidence of it.
Weird. There's a lot of those.
Here. Weird. Shocker.
Seems like that's like the history of like life. It's just
at least in this country.
Nope, that was just a fairy tale.
But I will.
Santa Claus isn't real.
Yes. Sorry.
Dude, we have people that listen to the podcast that might believe.
Sorry, Bennett.
Bennett's like 12 now. I think we might be beyond that.
I think we'll be in the clear.
Anyways, I want to share what I'm thankful for with the podcast, and that is all of our listeners and supporters. So thank you for sharing our podcast, listening to it, supporting us financially, either on Patreon or going on a trip or buying merchandise on our website. Those are all things that we really, really appreciate. And so thank you from us for all your support.
I'm thankful for my 2 friends that I get the podcast with.
I didn't know we were going to do thank yous, dude. I would have wrote a big speech. Like now I feel like I didn't know I was getting a Grammy and I just got one. You know what I mean?
My gosh. You're like at the mic and you're like, oh my God, I didn't really think this was going to happen.
Dude, I just got in from a trip. I'm sweating.
So, yeah. Okay. So you got in from a trip. Let's talk about your sightings.
Oh, well, I didn't have any. There's no whales out there.
That's not true.
Wow, dude. Just
it was it was really good trip actually. It started off foggy and scary. Not scary because of the fog, but scary because of fog because I was, it's gonna take me a lot longer to find stuff. But I ended up finding a sea lion that was eating a bat ray, and it was like a full bat ray. Like when I got there, I'm pretty sure the bat ray was still flapping.
Oh, cool.
And there was a lot of blood, so that was kind of cool. Because it's not like, I feel like when they throw a mola, it's like, there's a little bit of blood, but like there was like actual plume of blood in the water.
Oh,
so
nice.
That's kind of cool. We watched him. He was going to town on it. And then right as he was kind of finishing up, another boat found a whale. A whale that I hadn't seen before. It was a calf in 2020. The whale's name was Noah. And funny, the mom hasn't been seen since the last time the calf was seen here. So
she's like, see ya. I really didn't want to see you again.
The calf is on its own. It was with literally 500 or more sea lions. Like I didn't see that many sea lions the entire summer feeding with whales. And all of a sudden there's more sea lions now than like ever. It's weird.
Well,
like there is and there's not. Like there's not a lot in the harbors anymore and around, but there's a lot out on the water.
Well, I always had the question of like, when do they learn how to do the thing with the sea lions? And like, is it more on the whales part or is it more on the sea lions part? Like, who's orchestrating that? So it's interesting that you saw a 2020 calf with sea lions.
I bet it goes both ways. I bet it's like, oh, if there's sea lions here, there's probably food here.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like the small whales in Newport. It's like anytime you find them, they're usually with dolphins. They're usually like straggling behind dolphins.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it's not always the case. I know they see whales without dolphins, but a lot of times they were always straggling behind dolphins. So maybe it's that way. And then with the adults, it's like we'll use them to help feed, get it to the surface or something. So maybe it's just different.
I mean, the tag data shows that mostly it's the sea lions taking advantage of the whale, but maybe the whales are using that as a clue because sometimes you see big rafts of sea lions with no whale, and then a whale will go over there.
Mm-hmm. All I know is, in my experience, is that all of a sudden we didn't have lunch feeding until the sea lions showed up. Like there was no lunch feeding. Then the sea lions got here this summer, and the next thing you know, we started seeing lunch feeding. So maybe they don't need the sea lions. Obviously, they could just lunge underwater, but maybe we need the sea lions because it helps them get it to the surface. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, we saw that single Noah, and then we ended up with there was like one or two cow-calf pairs, a couple singles spread out. I did see a big full breach. Nice. It didn't twist. It just did like the big arch back bend, and then splash.
Yeah.
It was a really good trip. A lot of whales. Despite
the fog.
Yeah. And the fog came in like it came and went. And then right when I got to the harbor entrance, Rastrios was in front of literally I marked the green buoy. I was like 800 feet from the green buoy, and that's where Rastrios was. So that was cool.
Nice. That's a cool whale.
Yeah. We saw him on the whale owner trip, right?
Yeah.
All the rake marks.
Yep.
Yeah. Saw him very briefly. Yeah.
Yeah. He's still there. I hope he stays right there in front of the MLA buoy the entire winter.
Him and Gacho were together the day that we saw them.
It's funny because I haven't seen Gacho, but whenever I think of that name, it just reminds me of Gato Baracho, the other whale. And it's hard. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What's up, Adam? I know you had a spicy day. I can see he's just like itching to tell us about his day.
Or maybe he's dreading it.
Today was a tough one. We went out of the harbor, and for pretty much the entire summer, the whales have been to the west, and they've been hanging out in like one of our local spots the entire summer, and it's been really good. You could just, and it's a pretty close spot to the harbor, so it's not too tough of a ride. We can go there, and then like our normal routine is like go there, spend an hour and a half, 2 hours at the humpbacks, and then shoot across to Santa Cruz Island, go to the Painted Cave, and then go home and get more whales on the way home. That's like been our typical thing this summer. It's yielded a massive amount of humpbacks and really good sightings. So we did that today. And well, we started going west today, and we just didn't get much, and that's okay because the ocean, you never know.
Hit him with the heart, that Adam. Did you see a whale?
No, we didn't see a whale today. Well, we went out, actually, when we first went out, it was zero visibility fog, and it was blowing like 25 knots last night. So we had like mixed swell. There were some of those swells were like 8 feet, like they were huge, and like the interval was pretty close to
yes.
And we were running
conditions bad.
Exactly. And we were actually running through the area where the big group has been lately, but it was all fogged in, and we did get dolphins in there. So there definitely could have been a whale in there, but we literally had zero visibility fog. And then we finally broke out of the fog. And then lately, all the whales have moved east. And for whatever reason, nobody wanted to listen to me today when I told them that all the whales have been east. And so like we just kept going west. And then eventually everybody was like, all right, let's go check out the Eastern Channel. But by that point, we had already burned half the trip. So we went down to the east, but we did find a really, really good pod of common dolphins in like beautiful glassy water. They totally are such a trip saver. Yeah. And they're really good dolphins, and the water visibility was great. You could literally see them like 100 feet down. It was super cool. So that was really nice. And technically we just saw a minke whale, but we gave everybody a free trip because we didn't find any humpbacks, but that's okay. Sometimes nature.
Oh, nice. You guys guarantee a baleen whale, huh?
Yeah, we do.
That's
cool. So if you don't see a whale with us, we'll give you a free trip.
Makes sense. Like in Newport, it's just dolphins. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they'll give trips, like their trips are like $22, like whatever.
Yeah. You can go for $7 if you want.
Exactly.
If you really are looking, you can find quite a deal.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have a $7 off in one of my drone boxes or something from the past.
Yeah, our trips are a little bit more expensive than that. But I think today was like the first day in literally like 6 months that we've given out a whale check, so it's fine. But yeah, and that's just kind of typical this time of year. Like the whales are moving around a lot, right? They're moving south, they're migrating south. So we'll see how long they stick around for. But I was super stoked on those dolphins because they're really, really good.
Were they playing in the wake and stuff?
Yeah, they're playing in the wake. I had like this little corner because today was my day off, and tomorrow's my day off, and I'm still going out. But I just want to go out to photograph dolphins was like my whole goal today. And I had like this little spot on like the starboard bow where I was just like looking down at them. You could just see them just like cruising right next to us. And yeah, it was a perfect way to end the trip for sure.
My pastor today asked me if she's like, have you had a trip where you had to not refund someone or like take them out again because you didn't see a whale? And I was like, well, no, but it's my first summer anyways, or first season. Yeah. And then I was like, I really want to avoid that. So, yeah. Like I don't want to take anyone out there for no reason. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. If I guess I'll just try to shut down trips if it's really been bad and no one's booked those days, you know?
Yeah, Monterey, like it can be tricky from here until like the second week of January, but sometimes there's humpbacks every day, especially out of Moss.
Eric in Discovery Whale Watch today had a humpback whale at breakwater inside the scuba divers. So the scuba divers were out on the kelp, and Eric and them were yelling, I guess. They were like, you guys have a whale behind you. They're like, what? No way. Like, what are you talking about? And then like the whale started to go towards El Torito, and like it was inside the kelp. Wow. In freaking break, like in like, you know what I mean?
You know, probably
in 20 feet of water.
Yeah, about 5 years ago, there's a video from a scuba diver right there at San Carlos Beach, and there's like this big anchovy school, and all of a sudden this humpback whale goes by, and then the diver's just like, ah!
Dude, Adam, there was a year where the anchovies came in the harbor and the humpback lunch fed at the fuel dock.
Fuel dock, yeah.
Was that like a year before I got there or something?
It was.
Or might have been, I don't know. I feel like I remember it so vividly, but
summer of 2015, I think.
Yeah, it's right before I got there.
Maybe 2014.
So cool.
Because I was working in the office still at the first company I worked at. And I remember people would walk in and be like, why would I go on the boat? I just saw a whale from land. And I was like, oh, well, you're going to see him like with a better perspective and you get to see him feeding. And then they showed me this video of a lunch feeding whale that they took from the fuel dock. And I was like, never mind.
You can go.
Well, I mean, dude, it's like there's been killer whales in front of that harbor. There's been gray whales in the harbor. There's Rizzos in front of it on a regular basis.
Bottlenose dolphin inside the harbor. Yeah. I've seen humpback whales in the harbor quite a few times. I mean, sometimes they're like a young one's like sneaking through the mooring field. And you're like, excuse me, what are you doing in here?
I want to know how far a gray whale has gone up Elkhorn Slough under that bridge. I guarantee it's happened 100%. I know they've been in that. They've been in that harbor. They've been in every harbor on the West Coast.
I think it probably would depend on the tide because it's not that deep at low tide.
Yeah.
Plus, they would pretty strongly feel the outflow and be like, oh, this isn't right.
Easy. I'm ready for gray whales, dude. You're going to be big old boulders rolling down the coast.
Very crusty animals going down the coast.
I hope it's a good year for them.
I hope so too. Yeah, I mean, I hope the northbound migration is good for them.
Whatever, any migration.
There was not a lot of calves last year. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. I don't know what the like preliminary suspicions are. I mean, it sounds like the whales that are feeding off of like the mainland of the US instead of going all the way up to Alaska have been doing quite well. Like their body condition in the summer looks really good. So
that's good.
At least those whales are doing good, but I don't know about the rest of them.
Seems crazy. You can actually just go look at gray whales like year round if you want.
Yeah. Why not?
In Oregon.
You can see them from like, there's some high points of land out on the headlands that you can see them from shore and like see them from above. It's really cool.
All right, let's jump right into this.
Okay, well, before we get into the full topic of episode 96, I had some thoughts swirling around in my brain about episodes 94 and 95 that I think I got distracted by your photos of krill at the end of episode 95 and like never finished my thought. But I just, knowing what we know now about how much baleen whales are eating, especially krill in the Southern Ocean, like how can we fish for krill anymore? Like on an industrial scale, like
we shouldn't be.
I don't feel like you can, right? Like if you shift to allow for how much the whales are actually eating, is there any left over for a quota for a fishery? These whales are eating 3 times as much as they originally thought. Like, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, I don't know. How many things are krill? How many things are krill used for?
Yeah.
Because I know that, like I told you in Iceland, we talked about before, the like krill cream cheese like thing.
Yeah, but that's like krill they're catching off the coast of Iceland. I'm talking about like the big factory ships that go down and catch krill in the Southern Ocean and like use it for krill supplements.
Oh, you think they're using their own krill there?
Yeah, because like in the Philippines, they eat krill as like a food dish, you know, like I'm okay with that. Small scale fisheries, if you're using it for food or whatever, and it's done sustainably, like go for it. But like if you're just harvesting krill to put in dietary supplements for people or put into animal feed or whatever they're using it for, it's like, dude, what?
They harvest 150 to 200,000 tons annually.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up, but I was just trying to see what they use the krill from the Southern Ocean for.
As far as I know, it's mostly supplements.
200 tons is not a lot.
But still,
150,000 tons.
Oh, 150. Yeah, still.
That's what I said. 150 to 200,000 tons.
Oh.
Like, can we afford to take any krill at all?
And it's not metric tons, okay?
And then my other question is, what if there was like just a moratorium on krill, industrial or commercial krill harvest for a decade or 2 decades? Like, what would the Southern Ocean maybe look like by then? Like just knowing how much whales regenerate an ecosystem, and if you gave them some time to also reproduce, because whales are on a long calve interval.
If we did that for like the whole ocean for 2 years, if we said, hey, we're not taking a single thing out of the ocean for 2 years, which is like literally impossible, it would probably come back like real fast.
Yeah. I mean, even some fisheries you could suspend for 5 years. And in the short term, it really hurts, but it doesn't destroy the fishery long term. people can still hang on to gear for that long and maintain boats and do other things with them that long.
That's a lot of livelihoods, I guess, but
yeah,
still would be cool to think about.
So then that kind of just led me to this concluding thought of like capitalism and like effective conservation strategies are like just at odds with each other, right? Like we've got to find a way to get past the capitalism aspect of it, because we're never going to save the planet if it's all about the money. Even though saving the planet will save us money.
People just don't connect the two though. Like,
yeah.
Because people aren't worried about the future, like end of story. Like most people just are not thinking about.
They're worried about now.
And I don't even get why they care in general, because like most of these people that are like arguing about stuff, it's like, dude, you're like 70 years old. Like, what are you like so stressed about? Like,
you're on your way out.
No offense. It's just like,
why don't you just more money did you need to make before you die?
Well, but it's like, it's not even that. Or like, why are you so worried about it now? Like, why don't you just go take a break and go to Antarctica and chill with the penguins?
That's what I would do. If I was 70, that's what I would do.
Instead of trying to be so political.
That's a perfect segue into what I was going to use as a primer for the rest of the episode. So this episode, to just kind of position it with Thanksgiving, I wanted to honor some Indigenous stories and perspectives. And so the principle of 7 generations, have you guys ever heard of that with like the North American Indigenous people? It's originally an Iroquois concept. So it's basically decisions you make now will affect 7 generations into the future. And so that's like a law that's in practice amongst Iroquois people and many other Indigenous tribes and groups. And so like when you think about something, you have to think that far into the future about what your decision is going to affect. I mean, that's incredible. And I think that's how we all should be thinking.
I absolutely agree.
Like if you want to make money today, what does that mean 150 years from now?
Because it's not even like
that's how we got in this mess. We didn't think like that.
Well, it's not even us.
Think about it. It's like 2 generations ago, like not 7. You know, like
it's not even us as to think it. There should be kind of like guidelines and rules in place to like force you to think it, not force you to, but like you know, that should have been the right way to do it in the first place.
Yeah, and then another way you could interpret this practice is also thinking across 7 generations. So think about the 3 generations that came before you and the 3 generations that will follow you. And so just thinking about how things really stretch across time, and like kind of like that analogy of like if you pull the one little thread, it unravels the whole thing. And so just you really have to think about the reach that you have over your lifetime. I mean, the infants you interact with in your last years of life, you still have an effect on them, even though you're 80 or 90 years older than them. Mm-hmm. And so just like taking that time and really having considerations about that before you take action is like, what a concept. Like it's what we should have been doing from the start.
We'll never learn. It's just it is what it is. And like people
like this has been a part of Indigenous culture and practice and like ruling practice for way before Western contact. Like these people had it figured out forever ago. So that's kind of a good primer to go into the stories I wanted to share for this episode. All of them have to do with the Arctic, mostly Alaska, but a little bit about Russia. And I think it's pretty interesting and cool. So I'll share some stories. The first one is from Russia. And it's the mystery of Whalebone Alley. Who built it and why? And it's this really random news article I ran across that's from ancientorigins.net. Is not mainstream news. But Whalebone Alley is located on Yupik Island off the coast of Russia. If you were on the island today, which it is a tourist attraction, you can go there. You can see beluga whales and bowhead whales around
Okay, so why are we not there?
I know, we should go there. It sounds like a cool place. In the article, which I'll link in the show notes, there's a little video in the article showing like all the pictures of it, of like all the whale bones everywhere. So I think we should go. It looks pretty cool.
Whale Nerds 2022.
2023. I don't know if we're gonna be allowed into. I don't know if we're gonna be allowed into Russia by 2022.
Probably not.
It's also kind of tricky to do visas, but I have some people that I can ask more about that. But anyways.
Wow, look at these bones. Holy crap.
So the bones on the island seem to be arranged in a pattern, and they're mostly from bowhead whales. So these bones are huge and they're heavy.
Dude, they're massive.
Which is nuts. But they seem to be intentionally placed there and supported by stone bases. So like they're not just there by accident.
Yeah.
And then also on the island, there's these pits, which archaeologists think were actually built to store whale meat. So the Yupik people used to inhabit this island, and there's a couple theories as to why the bones are arranged as they are. It could have been sort of a neutral meeting ground for different tribes on the island to like gather, and like that was like the neutral zone. It could have also just been a ceremonial location, or it could have been a whale processing site. And the next article we're going to talk about, I think, sheds more light on the fact that it probably was a ceremonial location that had to do with whaling, because there's other sites like this in Alaska, not quite to this scale, but fairly similar. So
yeah,
Whalebone Alley. Let's go check it out.
How was it only discovered in 1976?
Because Russia still is run by an interesting government structure.
Communist.
Yeah, but it's also like fairly remote, and it's a really small island. So I think there wasn't a lot of incentive to go there. Like if you have to justify government spending to go investigate something, it's like, why would we go?
Site.
Yeah, and now it's a World Heritage Site, which is super cool.
That's super awesome.
Also in 1976, the USSR was still whaling.
Yeah.
Just thought there.
Those
USSR
people.
I mean, to be fair, the international 80s, right? Moratorium on whaling wasn't until the 80s, but then they
but they were still whaling
kept
up until
whaling after that.
In 1986, right?
The island is funny. Is a cool name.
Yeah, we really need to get Yulia. She's one of the researchers that worked on the like secret whale logs and like helped quantify how many whales were hunted and then covered up by the USSR. We should have her on the podcast because her work is really cool.
You should.
Anyways.
Wow.
Back on to our topics. Okay, so this was an article. The link I'll put in the show notes is from the Smithsonian Magazine, but it's actually originally a Hakai Magazine article, and it's called Why Scientists Are Starting to Care About Cultures That Talk to Whales. And this is about Alaskan whalers. So it starts with a story about Henry Brower Sr. So he was laying in a hospital bed in Anchorage, Alaska, close to death, and he was visited by a baby whale. He had a vision of a baby whale. Although Brower's body remained in Anchorage at the hospital, the young bowhead whale took him more than 1,000 kilometers north to Barrow, which is actually now called Yupik, and that's where his family lives, Brower's family, and obviously the whale. They traveled together through the town and past the indistinct edge where the tundra gives way to the Arctic Ocean. There's an ice blue underwater world. Brower saw Inupiat hunters in a sealskin boat closing in on the calf's mother. Brower felt the shuddering harpoon enter the whale's body. He looked at the faces of the men in the Yupik, which is the canoe they're in, including those of his own sons. When he awoke in the hospital bed as if from a trance, he knew precisely which man made the kill, how the whale died, and whose ice cellar the meat was stored in. And when they asked him to verify it all, he was right on all of the accounts.
You're kidding.
Isn't that cool?
Dude, that's badass.
So he was a Indigenous whaling captain in Alaska. And so that's why he saw like his own kids in the boat, because his family is part of the community that are whalers. And so after this experience in the hospital and like verifying that it was true and like feeling the emotion of the baby whale, he handed down new rules to the whaling community about hunting mom calf pairs.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And it was all written with the intention of respecting their feelings and needs and communicating to the whales. Like by not hunting them, it was like they were responding to the whales reaching out to them and showing them respect and leaving the mom and calf pairs alone, recognizing that that's like an important life stage for a whale and to be respectful with their hunting practices. And a lot of Brower's stories are actually available in a book called The Whales They Give Themselves. I did look it up. It's on Amazon. So, and a bunch of other places online too. So if you want to read more stories from Harry in particular, there's a book. He passed away in the 90s, but you could read his stories if you want to.
Oh, that's awesome.
So then this article kind of reflects on the whole idea of like Western science for a long time dismissed these kind of stories and like didn't understand like how connected Indigenous communities are to nature, especially like in communities like this whaling community. Like you think a whale is such an abstract thing. You're like, how could you possibly be connected to this animal that lives in the water and like you can't even hear it? Like, so things are starting to shift now, and it's like, you know, literally opening a whole new world of insight on research, which is pretty incredible. So just kind of some backstory about Indigenous whaling in the Arctic. Archaeologists believe that it began around 600 to 800 CE, so Common Era. And 1,000 years before that, people were living in the Arctic, but they were hunting walrus, caribou, and seals. So these people are pretty rugged. Like you can take down a walrus or a whale or a seal. Like that's pretty gnarly.
Yeah. I can't
imagine
kill a fly.
I'm scared of like I don't even want to walk up to a walrus. These people are hunting that. That's crazy. So as whaling became more successful, Indigenous communities were actually able to become stationary and build permanent settlements. So whaling like really was a pivotal moment for people that lived in the Arctic, because then they could like settle down and like build villages and like have a community and social structure and like so that was a big deal. By the time Western contact came to these areas in the Arctic, it was already the 10th century, and the Westerner accounts of like seeing whaling in action where they were like just dumbfounded by the whole thing. Like some people called it a whale cult because they observed the ceremonial aspects of a whale hunt where whalers sang songs before and during the hunt. They performed ceremonies in spaces encircled in whale bones. Remember our whale bone alley? And they had whale amulets and adorned their vessels with whale carvings. And so most people thought it was like supernatural. It was like a bunch of woo woo. Like they were just like, this is mind blowing. So to talk about the like adorning their vessels with the whale carvings and the amulets is pretty interesting, the logic behind it. So using Inupiat oral histories recorded in the 19th and 20th centuries, researchers realized that amulets were meant to be placed on the boat with the likeness of the whale facing down towards the ocean. This meticulously rendered art was meant not for the humans, but for the whales to flatter them. It says, they said that it called them to the whales to the hunters. It was the idea that the whale would be attracted to its likeness. So obviously you want to depict the whale in the most positive way possible. And then in Canada around St. Lawrence, there's also Yupik stories that tell of whales spending hours swimming underneath the canoe and positioning themselves so they could see the carvings and the people in the boat. And if the canoe is clean and the carvings were pretty or beautiful and the men were respectful while the whale was observing them, the whale might position itself to be harpooned. If the art portrayed the whale in an unflattering way or the boat was dirty, it indicated that the hunters were lazy and they wouldn't treat the whale's body properly. So the whale would swim away.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. Can you imagine if all whalers had like this much respect for whales before they killed them?
No.
We would have never killed as many whales as we did. Like this is something that's taken with like so much consideration and process. Like
it's how the world was supposed to be.
Yeah.
It just didn't go that way.
Man. I mean, just like industrial whaling, just like a slap in the face to this practice. like just taking as many.
It's not just whaling; it's literally all types of hunting and like not hunting, but commercial like harvesting of
the way
animals.
We farm. Yeah. Craziness. So thinking about commercial whaling, even whaling strongholds like the Inupiat villages of Alaska were not immune to the 1970s International Whaling Commission that halted the subsistence harvest of bowhead whales because government scientists actually feared that there were only 1,300 animals left in their population. Harry Brower Sr. and other whaling captains who had lifetimes of experience knew that number was actually wrong. And so the Inupiat whalers actually had the financial means to fight back against this regulation. And so they took their money and hired Western trained scientists to corroborate what they knew was the true number of whales. Mm-hmm. And so the scientists developed a new methodology that used hydrophones to count bowhead whales beneath the ice rather than trying to just do a visual survey in a few strategic locations. And their findings actually proved that there were way more bowhead whales than the government had previously thought, and they were allowed to continue their subsistence harvest of whales afterwards. There's more information about that in the next article. But
did it say how many whales they had, or?
It doesn't say how many there were in either of the articles I read, but why the scientists had such a low number is talked about in the next article. It's kind of funny. Gotcha. So, what were you going to say, Slater?
People have killed more bowhead whales than we'll ever see.
I know.
Not fair.
I know. So the article kind of wraps up with like, there are other long held indigenous beliefs that actually have been proven by scientists. And like kind of more, I don't know, I would say quote unquote official because it's like a Western science proven thing now. But like for years, scientists thought that whales didn't have a sense of smell, but Inupiat hunters knew that if the smoke from their fires blew out over the ocean, the whales would move away from the shore. So the whales can smell the smoke. And that was indeed proven. There's a little bit more about it in the next story. And then the same thing with the Yupik belief that beluga whales were once land-dwelling creatures. Like they have stories about that. Well, guess what? All marine mammals came from the land.
Like, pretty cool.
Yeah, so pretty cool. And you can actually see that on a whale fetus. They have legs when they're in the early stages of development as a fetus. So,
and they probably found that out through hunting, obviously, like killing a pregnant female. They saw one with legs. Probably.
I wonder what they thought about that.
I mean, I think it was, I have another article that we can talk about in a future episode, but like in the Pacific Northwest, like the people that live around Southern Canada and Washington, like regard killer whales as people.
Yeah.
Like they're killer whales, but like they have like a human type spirit inside them. So I think that's probably not too far off to how people view like belugas and other especially odontocetes, very intelligent, communicative odontocetes. So this last article is from the Atlantic, and it's called "The Alaskan Hunters That Are Teaching Scientists About Whales." So kind of a nice way to shift and finalize everything. So this article follows specifically the story of a Dutch researcher, Hans Thuyssen, and how he collaborates with Indigenous hunters to answer scientific questions. So it's kind of a follow-up from the previous article. I don't think they did it on purpose, but they kind of like perfectly follow each other. So all the studies that are featured in the article, Hans is working closely with the Inupiat people and native to the area. And some of the thoughts and projects were directly inspired by having conversations with these whaling captains. So his work fits into decades of research that draws on Indigenous knowledge about the Arctic. And this whale research is now an example of how productive collaboration between outside scientists and the Inupiat people can be really beneficial, but that definitely was not always the case. The representative from the Alaska Eskimo Whaling Commission that they quote in this article is named Arnold Brower Jr. His name sound familiar? He's Harry's cousin.
Yeah, that's funny.
So a little bit more information about how they came up with the bowhead quota. The captains formed the Alaska Eskimo Whaling Commission, and they eventually decided to conduct their own bowhead census to increase the quota. So in 1982, the commission turned over the census to the local government of North Slope Borough, which encompasses Yupik, and the borough hired its own scientists who determined that the federal government census had been undercounting bowhead whales. The problem, as later recounted by Thomas Albert, one of the representatives of the Northborough scientists, was that conventional scientific wisdom was wrong. Scientists thought that bowhead whales were, quote unquote, afraid of ice and only swam in open water, when in fact the whales were swimming under ice out of the view of the observers posted on land.
Damn, what a concept.
What a bunch of idiots.
Like they literally use their head to break through like 2 feet of ice.
That's part of how they got their name, because they break through ice that up to 2 meters thick, I think, up to 6 feet. Like,
so funny.
No wonder the Inupiat people were like, y'all are stupid. Like,
they have the biggest baleen? Do they have the biggest 12 up to 12 feet?
Look at that article. There's a picture of one that they hunted, and the baleen is gnarly on it.
I mean, I've held pieces that are way taller than me, and I'm like, this isn't even a big piece.
You guys, there's pictures of I'm just like on the Google of the bowhead, but like there's just pictures of bowhead whales just like they're just like head to head with an sheet of ice. You know what I mean? Like
that's all you want. You just want the picture of the whale with the ice.
Dude, you could like.
Dude, there's one video. Things. There's one video of a drone from a drone of a bowhead whale, and it just looks so cool.
Is it from a NOAA survey?
I can't remember. It was on the Ocean Science documentary.
I don't know. I think they're very beautiful and really cool animals.
They really are.
They're my favorite.
So basically, this guy's getting samples from the whalers while they're processing the whale freshly dead on the beach. So like, you can't ask for any better samples than that. It's kind of like Nick Pyenson working with Icelandic whalers. So when the whalers go out in the spring, there's still usually quite a bit of ice. So they still use their traditional kayaks, the umiaks. And just thinking again about like the dedication it takes to be a subsistence whaler. Building an umiak can take several years between collecting driftwood, acquiring seal skins, hunting caribou big enough so that their sinew can be used to sew the skins together, and hunting and fishing to provision the whaling camps is a year-round endeavor. Like, that's just so much dedication to this practice. Like, it's just like you live and breathe it. Like, no wonder these people are so connected and so wise about it, that literally their life depends on it, and they're willing to dedicate their life to it. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, and like setting a quota on that can destroy their whole lives.
Well, especially when the person setting the quota knows nothing about this.
Yeah, exactly.
So during two kind of anecdotal studies, one of them we already talked about a little bit with the whale sense of smell. So Thwaissen had heard captains talking about the bowhead whale sense of smell, and he was like, well, scientists don't think whales can smell. And after all, why would whales living in the water need to be able to smell things in the air? Like, what would be the point of having a sense of smell? But the Inupiat knew that the smoke from the campfire would drive whales further from the shore. So on this suggestion, he dissected the head of a bowhead whale and found a nerve from the whale's nostril leading to the olfactory bulb in their brain.
Ooh.
The processing center for smell.
Wow, that's awesome.
I don't get it, dude.
Like,
stay to the man, bro.
Like, just listen to them. Man. They know. So then this is the coolest one, I think, of the whole thing. So there was another story where, or another study where the Dutch researcher Hans, he was very confused about the buoyancy of baby whales. So young bowhead whales have a diet rich in milk, and they plump up to fat little baby whales like you see with many baleen whales. But once they're weaned, they go into a period of relative starvation as their baleen starts to grow in and they're able to forage on their own. So they lose a lot of that fat. So how come a 1-year-old fat little whale and a skinny 5-year-old whale both stay buoyant in the water. And you'll see this with humpbacks too. Like a 3-year-old humpback is way thinner than a one-year-old humpback.
Yeah.
So
freaking Halo and Google are thick as heck.
Yeah, think about how big they are compared to like they're like the same size as Rostrillos, and Rostrillos has been seen a couple years now. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They're on all their baby fat. So
now they're on their own.
How did they stay buoyant? Because they're kind of starving for their first year, couple years of life as they're trying to figure out how to catch food. So Hans suspected it had something to do with their bones, but he couldn't figure out a pattern in his bone samples. So then the hunters suggested that he should look at the ribs, because like what was his name? Arnold, is that right? Yeah, mm-hmm. Arnold's father would only use the rib bones of 1-year-old bowhead whales to weigh down nets, only from 1-year-old whales. And it's because that's when their bones are the densest. So over a period of 5 years, their ribs lose as much as 40% of their mass to compensate for losing the fat. So they still stay buoyant.
So their bones get less strong.
They're less dense.
Wow,
isn't that crazy? Up to 40% of their density, their mass.
If I lost 40% of my mass, I'd be even 20 years
the whalers are so in tune with what you get out of different age classes of whales that they're like, oh yeah, just look at the ribs.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Duh.
Like, it's probably the same for all of them, huh?
What do you mean?
For all whales.
Baleen whales especially, but yeah, probably also odontocetes to some extent. So the article kind of wraps up with this notion that traditional knowledge is now being cemented in scientific record due to this collaboration. And ultimately that's going to be a good thing. So pretty incredible. I'm telling you.
They're so cool, dude.
All right, Caitlin.
If you ask the right people, they already know all the answers and you can prove it.
Why did I just Google where can I go to bowhead whale watch? And then it says National Breed Sanctuary, Monterey Bay whale watching.
Because it says where can I go whale watching, basically.
Galley activities, what the heck? I
would love to go up there to see all of it.
So we need to go in like August. Polar bears and bowhead whales at the same time? Frick it.
Let's go right now.
No, dude, it's about to be freezing up there.
We don't need to work in the summer. Who cares?
Oh, geez.
I'm going next August. You guys back up.
He's like, catch me outside.
Actually, I wasn't even there for it, but when you guys did the interview with Nick Pianson, he recommended a book called Floating Coasts.
Oh, yes, he did.
And it's super, super good. And it I haven't finished it yet, but it encapsulates a lot of the same stuff we're talking about with the Inuits and their relationships with whales, and also how like whaling allowed for the commercialization of, a lot of different countries and places like that. it's just super cool to see like how,
whaling really
exactly how deep rooted our history is with whales, and like definitely in the United States, but then it goes like into this obviously into this area of like Beringia, they call it, like the Bering Strait, and it's kind of the same thing there, like how just important whaling was to really start their civilizations and stuff. Super cool book. You should check it out for sure.
Yeah, whaling was like the first industry that connected the world to each other.
Exactly.
Like if you really look at the history of like where were the crews coming from, where were they re-provisioning, where were they landing whales, like people started to travel the world on whaling ships.
Yeah,
just pretty incredible. But all of these like reflections we're having while we're learning about these stories also kind of remind me of a documentary I just watched on Netflix called Gather. I assume it's going to be on Netflix for quite a while. So it's kind of watching these indigenous communities reclaim their like native diets. And there's one kind of feature in there that's a young girl her family raises buffalo. And she's like, buffalo meat is better for you than industrial raised cows. And she's like, I know this because like this is our people's knowledge, but then she like is really interested in science, and so she like goes on to like prove it, which is kind of the same thing that we ended the episode with too, which is really cool. So
yeah.
Buffalo or bison?
They're this in the US, they're the same. Yeah. But there's water buffalo, and then
that's what I'm saying. People get really mad when you call bison buffalo. Like, yeah, I've heard some people get real mad.
What is it? You can say you have to put American.
It's not the same. They're not the same.
Well, in America, we call buffalo bison.
No, I think like we do.
American.
We don't have buffalo in America.
They're in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah, American bison. Or American buffalo, commonly known, but it is a bison.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah.
Yeah.
I
so cool.
Encourage everyone that is interested in nature to also learn about the indigenous people of their area and what they know about nature. Because
that's one of my favorite parts about being in the channel is that the Chumash used to live on Santa Cruz Island, so we always talk about their role and how they were able to live off the island and live off of seafood. I just wonder, like, if you really go into the research of it, like, how often did Chumash, like, encounter whales? Like, I'm sure it was a lot, but like, what was their relationship?
Well, there's one book that kind of sheds some light about that. I've read some passages of it. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but it's called The Ohlone Way. And it's about the tribes that lived around Central California. And there's accounts of like whale carcasses being on shore, and that's like a food source for people. And like, so I think definitely like not only encountering them as food, but also just seeing them from the shoreline and to and from the island, 100%. I want to go back to like when they lived there and see what the wildlife looked like.
I do too. Like they took like the wood plank canoes, the tow malls across like the channel, the 23-mile crossing, and I'm sure they had run-ins with like whales and killer whales and stuff. Like
of
I
course.
just love to like it just be so
they had
cool.
Sea otters around the island.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of Chumash, there is a campaign going on right now to connect all of the national marine sanctuaries in California by adding a link at the Chumash National Marine Sanctuary, which would connect the south end of Monterey Bay and the north end of Channel Islands.
Yeah, I was just looking to see where it stops at.
It pretty much goes.
Yeah.
It's supposed to connect the two.
Yeah. So like off of Morro Bay, but connecting the two sanctuaries. So
it goes down to Point Conception.
All the way from Cordell Bank to the bottom of Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary, the entire coastline of California would be now designated as a National Marine Sanctuary.
Yeah, it's that whole like continental drop off, like which is kind of.
Wait, until where? Where's the southern part?
Channel Islands.
It goes. Okay, it goes to Conception. It goes to Point Conception, and I think it even goes across to San Miguel Island.
But it ain't gonna be like Point Vicente and down.
No,
I think that
there's nothing down there to protect.
Wow.
Anyways, back to reality, guys. About 19K. If you guys want to go see bowhead whales with me next summer,
19.
About 19K, no big deal.
But don't worry, I can get us a 6% discount. So it's like
pocket change.
I can't. I'm just joking. Oh, dude, we're never gonna see bowhead whales. I kind of just want to get a credit card and just you got it, What's the worst that happens? You see bowhead whales and you have debt?
At least you saw bowhead whales while you had debt.
Yeah, it's like, whatever, dude.
Oh, man.
Just take out a car loan. And literally you could go to Antarctica and take out one car loan and you can go to the Arctic and you can go to the Antarctica.
Well, thanks y'all for going on this not so mainstream journey with me.
That was cool.
I love stuff like that.
I like when you teach us stuff.
Slater called me earlier today and he's like, what are we talking about? And I told him the topic. He's like, I don't know anything about it. And I was like, that's why we're doing the episode. He's like,
don't even worry.
This is just for me to learn stuff, huh? And I was like, it's for everybody to learn stuff.
Yeah, don't even Don't worry about our listeners. It's just for Slater.
I make this podcast just for Slater.
Why do you think I came up with that idea, Adam? Come on.
That's true. Part of how we came up with it is I would tell him something about whales and he'd be like, we just need to record this.
We were going to talk about whales, whether we got on a podcast today or not. So.
It's true.
We talk about whales like, I don't know, at least 6 times a day.
Yeah.
To each other, let alone everyone else we talk to.
I wish I had room for my Whales of the World poster.
That's it. You got to get a bigger apartment.
Dude. Don't tell him that. He's already.
My apartment dimensions have to accommodate all of my whale posters and art.
First off, the reason I want to get a 2-bedroom because Adam comes up here all the time, and at least he would be in another room.
So the living room.
If Adam kicks me down like $200 a month, dude, I'll move into a 2-bedroom. The office just called me here and they said we have one available December 13th, and I was like, oh.
I got $200 to kick down to you. My place is expensive.
You just went up $200 in rent.
I know
for no reason.
Yeah, it's stupid. Stupid COVID. That's what they blamed it on.
They said that.
Yeah, they're like, because of COVID, like the prices are competitive, and like you won't be able to find a place for like under this amount a month. And I was like, that's not a reason to raise rent on somebody. But
if you guys are all been paying rent there, it's not unless like a lot of people moved out because of COVID in your apartment complex. I can see that, but
maybe.
And they're trying to make up. But I'm sure they got bailed out anyways, right? Like
no, it's all those remote workers wanting to have their Santa Barbara vacation, and they drove up the prices.
Stupid. Now anyways, I have to pay more money.
This is the Rent Nerds podcast.
Welcome to the Rent Nerds podcast.
Renting is a joke.
It's complaining.
Yeah, well, guess what, Adam? We get to go look at whales every single day of our lives, as long as there's whales and the weather's good.
I can't complain that much. Hey,
there could be worse things. That's for
Dolphins
sure.
are technically whales.
There you go.
Yeah, they're just toothed whales, dude.
I saw whales today. Don't even fret.
All right, that's our 2-minute rant about rent.
Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate it. 96 episodes and going strong.
What are we doing for 100?
Oh, wait. The guys at my passenger today goes, I listened to one of your episodes. She's like, I'm going to have to catch up on a few more. I was like, we have 96. She was like, oh my God. I was like, dude, this isn't like.
This isn't a just for funsies thing.
This is an amateur hour, all right?
I think she thought we only had like a good. Because if you like, she's like, I watched them or I listened to them on your website because I have a link, you know? Oh. And I think that if you click it, it just shows like the top few. It doesn't show.
Yeah, it shows the most recent ones.
Yeah, so.
Also, you can go look at our website anytime you want. It's called thewhalenerds.com. And you can also check us out on social media at Whale Nerds on Facebook or Instagram. I put links to the articles we talk about in the episodes on our Facebook page. And if you want to get more information about what we're doing, what we're up to, booking a trip, merch, joining our Patreon, anything like that, you can do that all on our website, thewhalenerds.com. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, peeps.
Bye.
Bye.